Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about a few more literary terms that will help us out throughout the year. I want to go over them now so that we're able to start using them in our reading and our writing. In today's lesson for each literary term, we're going to give the definition, some examples, and also talk about the purpose. The four terms that we'll be going over together are didactic, juxtaposition, like to tease, and motif. The first one, didactic, means that it's a form of fiction or nonfiction that teaches a specific lesson or moral, or that provides a model of correct behavior or thinking. So it's something that tells you what you should be doing. Some examples are a genre called the morality plays, which were plays that either said if you did this good thing, you would have a happy life, or if you did this bad thing, you'd have an awful life. An essay by Alexander Pope called Essay on Man, which had a similar theme to the morality plays. And then also an example that we've started talking about in class called Animal Farm, which was an allegorical representation of how we should behave. The purpose for making something didactic is to teach a lesson or convey information. For that reason, works that are didactic, with probably the exception of Animal Farm and possibly other novels, they're usually seen as more just informative rather than elegant or literary or having much aesthetic value. Juxtaposition is our second term. That one means putting normally unassociated ideas, words, or phrases next to each other to create a surprising effect. So you're putting opposites side by side to create contrast. When you put opposite things next to each other, it highlights the difference even more, which makes each one seem a little bit more extreme. For example, in the famous epic poem Paradise Lost by John Milton, two of the main characters are God and Satan, and having God next to Satan makes one look much better and one look much worse than if you just have each one on their own. We can also see juxtaposition in just quotes. For example, this one by Martin Luther King Jr. that says, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." So here, injustice and justice are opposites, and anywhere and everywhere are opposites. So putting these next to each other creates more of an effect. We also have a lot of commonly contrasting symbols used in literature, so these are common uses of juxtaposition: beauty and ugliness, light and darkness, vision and blindness, poverty and wealth. Almost every literary work that includes one of these will also highlight its opposite to make it stand out more. So some reasons why we might put juxtaposition. Another important one is that it's very useful for character development. When you put a good character next to a bad character, it really highlights the difference, and we'll learn more later about a specific literary term for that. It can also provoke thought with unusual pairings. It makes you think a little bit more than if you're just told something directly. Our next literary term is called like to tease. Please refrain from trying to call this litotes. That's not how it's pronounced, like to tease, despite what it looks like. Like to tease is a form of understatement formed by a double negative. So it's where you create a positive by negating its opposite. The definition is kind of tricky, so let's look at some examples. For example, if you say, "Oh, it's not too bad," instead of saying that it's good or very good, you're forming a positive because you're saying it's not bad, but by a double negative. So you have the not and then you have the negative word. For example, if you say Beyonce and Jay-Z are not an ordinary couple, that's an understatement, right? They are far beyond an ordinary couple. So in this case, that would be like to tease because you have the double negative that creates a positive meaning instead. If you say the lottery jackpot is not a small amount, same thing. That's a huge understatement to say that it's not small because the jackpot is usually many, many millions of dollars. And lastly, the purpose of like to tease is it usually adds a sense of irony. So instead of saying it's, a huge amount or they're an extraordinary couple, it's kind of an ironic way to understate the point that you're trying to make. Our last literary device that we're going to talk about today is a motif. A motif is a recurring image, word, phrase, action, idea, object, or situation used throughout a work. So it comes up many times, whereas a symbol usually only comes up a couple of times. Some examples: in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, we have motifs of childhood and superstition. We have good and evil in To Kill a Mockingbird. And the purpose of a motif is to unify the work by creating consistency. So when we see a recurring idea, a recurring phrase, a recurring image, it kind of ties the whole book together throughout different parts of the plot. It can also help contribute to the theme. So it can help build in the theme that the author is looking for by having that motif. And that's it. Go back through and make sure you catch up on any notes that we can practice together in class.